Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over the most armored vehicles in GTA Online. Since the last time I did one of these lists, which was about a year ago, some things have changed. I've also added some more vehicles to this list, so we got 15 total vehicles on this list. These are going to be ranked purely based on how much damage these can take, based on RPGs, homing missiles, sticky bombs, explosives, things like that. But I'm also going to give you my thoughts on what vehicles are actually truly better than others, based on things like missile lock-on jammers and things like that. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, dislike if you don't, subscribe if you are new. Let's go ahead and get started with number 15. At number 15, we got the Karen Armored Kuruma for $525,000 to $698,250. Now we're obviously starting off pretty weak with the Karen Armored Kuruma. This thing cannot take any explosive damage whatsoever without being destroyed entirely. However, there is about a 95% chance of surviving small arms fire while inside this vehicle, which makes it extremely ideal for taking on NPCs as well as players that don't have any explosives. So basically nobody, but against NPCs and for doing missions and things like that, the Karen Armored Kuruma is pretty great. It has all-wheel drive, so it's pretty capable on-road and off-road alike. Overall, it's a really good starter vehicle, and it's definitely something that you guys should own if you plan on grinding missions or anything like that. At number 14, we got armored variants of normal vehicles. These vehicles can typically take about 2 RPGs or 2 homing missiles, and these vehicles also have bullet-resistant windows as well. So we're going to be talking about vehicles like the Benefactor Shafter V12 Armored, the Gallivanter Baller LE, as well as the Enos Cognoscenti 55. In addition to this, with the latest Agents of Sabotage DLC, 2 of these vehicles had the Missile Lock-on Jammer added as an available upgrade for them, and those vehicles are of course the Enos Cognoscenti 55 Armored and the Gallivanter Baller LE Armored. They have the Missile Lock-on Jammer available now through the Agency Vehicle Workshop, which is pretty cool, and this does make these vehicles significantly better than they were before. These are also pretty cheap. The Baller's like $375k, which is not bad at all, and for a vehicle that has the Missile Lock-on Jammer as well as some armor and explosive resistance, that's actually pretty good. The bullet-resistant windows are a nice added feature as well. Overall, these are a lot better than they were before. Next up, we got the Imponte Duke of Death. This thing is free, and it's available on Warstock, Cash, and Carry. And it's also had the Imani Tech Missile Lock-on Jammer added as an available upgrade to it as well, with the most recent DLC. This of course means the vehicle cannot be locked onto by homing missiles, which is pretty good, and in addition to this, it can take 3 RPGs or up to 9 homing missiles as well, which is pretty insane. For a free vehicle, this thing is crazy good. At number 12, we have internal combustion engine Imani Tech vehicles that have armor plating upgrades for them. Now, most Imani Tech vehicles in GTA Online fall into this category. Cars like the Canis Terminus, the Grotti Itali GTO Stinger TT, and the Bravado Buffalo STX are some good examples. These vehicles with armor plating applied to them can take 4 RPGs and typically 12 homing missiles. But there is a lot of variance with these cars as well. The first batch of Imani Tech capable vehicles we got into GTA Online had bullet resistant windows as well as optional front mounted machine guns. However, after that, the second batch and onwards typically didn't get these amenities, but stuck with the Missile Lock-on Jammer, the armor plating, and the oil slick proximity mines. These vehicles are generally very good though, and if I had to recommend one, I would recommend the Bravado Buffalo STX. It is fantastic. Next up, we have the HVY Barrage for $1,595,000 to $2,121,350 if you don't have the trade price. Now, the Barrage is a generally terrible vehicle. However, it can take 5 RPGs or 12 homing missiles. I don't recommend buying this vehicle though, because it does have some pretty serious issues with the tires and wheels clipping into the ground, making the driving experience mildly frustrating. And it's also not very fast, while being more expensive and worse in every way than the HVY Night Shark. So there's really not a reason to buy a Barrage. I don't think this vehicle's that good, and I would avoid buying one. At number 10, we have the TM02 Kanjali for $2,895,000 to $3,850,350 if you don't have the trade price. The TM02 Kanjali is a fairly heavily armored vehicle, allowing it to take 8 RPGs or 8 homing missiles, which does seem a bit low in all honesty, considering that this vehicle is a literal tank. But I guess for balance reasons, it does make a lot of sense. The Kinjali gets access to an explosive proximity mine dropper, as well as a top-mounted turret for a gunner in the tank, as well as 2 optional grenade launchers for 2 other players that can sit in the tank to use. Plus, of course, as the driver, you get access to the main gun, which is the highlight feature of the Kinjali. This vehicle is extremely slow though, due to the fact that it has tracks, and unfortunately it is extremely vulnerable to attacks from the air, so things like helis and jets are going to be a problem for the Kinjali. Overall, it is a pretty good vehicle though, and it is pretty well armored. Next up at number 9, we got the HVY APC for $2,325,000 to $3,092,500 if you don't have the trade price for it. The HVY APC shares the same 8 RPG or 8 homing missile proof armor as the TM02 Kinjali. However, the APC is significantly cheaper while also being faster, and it is amphibious, allowing it to traverse the waters of San Andreas while also being able to travel on land as well. Interestingly too, the APC allows the driver to shift over into the passenger seat without getting out of the vehicle, and the passenger seat will allow you to operate the turret that is mounted on the top of the APC. So this is really good for solo players. It is a lot less effective than just having a gunner, but it is nice to have the ability to get into the gunner seat without having to exit the vehicle. The APC can also be equipped with an explosive proximity mine dropper, as well as a SAM turret to replace the normal top-mounted explosive cannon. However, the SAM turret does come at a bit of a cost, and the major cost is the limited ammo capacity of just 50 rockets, whereas the regular turret does not have a limit on how many times it can be fired before recalling the vehicle. Now with the SAM turret, you do get rapid bursts of missiles, but generally I do consider the regular turret to be a better option for most players. I don't really think the SAM turret is worth it ever. At number 8, we got the HVY Night Shark for $1,245,000. The Night Shark is a go-to for most low-level players looking to get themselves some protection from griefers in GTA Online, and it is a very good vehicle for doing so. This vehicle can take 9 RPGs or 27 homing missiles before exploding. The Night Shark also gets front-mounted machine guns that the driver can control. However, these do essentially no damage, especially to vehicles with any sort of armor. But the Night Shark is extremely fast for how armored it is though, and this does come in handy a lot of the time. Plus, it's all-wheel drive and gets very good traction both on-road and off-road. Overall, this vehicle is fantastic, especially for the money. At number 7, we got the HVY Insurgent Pickup Custom for $1,997,500 all in. The Insurgent Pickup Custom is up next, and this vehicle is quite interesting all the way around. It can take the exact same 9 RPGs or 27 homing missiles that the Night Shark can take. However, the Insurgent Pickup Custom comes in a slightly better package. This thing can seat 9 players in total, in comparison to the Night Shark's 4 players in total. Plus, it has a top-mounted gun that deals an excessive amount of damage, while it also gets access to an explosive proximity mine dropper that can help to get rid of pursuing adversaries. It's extremely capable both on-road and off-road, while also being quite fast and responsive in the handling department. The HVY Insurgent Pickup Custom is a favorite of mine, and I definitely recommend this thing a lot. At number 6, we got the Bravado Half-Track for $1,695,000 to $2,254,350. The Half-Track ranks as the 6th best overall in terms of armor in GTA Online. Now, despite this vehicle being extremely slow, there is a reason that this vehicle is ahead of the HVY Insurgent Pickup Custom and the Night Shark. And both of those vehicles share the exact same armor resistance, with 9 RPGs and 27 homing missiles being needed to take this vehicle out. But the reason that this thing is ahead of both of those is because the Half-Track has a completely bulletproof front windshield that can never be broken with bullets or explosives. It also has an entirely bulletproof cab from the rear, which means the only way to actually get shot out of the vehicle is going to be through these side windows, which are quite small. The only other way to get taken out of this thing is by the vehicle being blown up entirely. This vehicle does get access to a proximity mine dropper, which can also help to ward off enemies, as well as a big turret on the back of it, which can also be upgraded to be even better than the stock variant of it. The vehicle is quite slow, but it certainly is absolutely incredible when it comes to protecting the occupants inside of the cab. Next up at number 5, we got electric Imani Tech vehicles with armor plating. Electric Imani Tech vehicles, such as the Bravado Buffalo EVX, Ocelot Virtue, and Obey Omni EGT or Omnis EGT, all have a significant amount of additional armor compared to their internal combustion engine counterparts like the Terminus, the STX, and the Gradiatelli GTO Stinger TT that we talked about a little while ago. The electric vehicles can typically take about 12 homing missiles, 12 RPGs, or 12 sticky bombs. Now this is a pretty significant increase. The electric vehicles can take a lot more RPGs and sticky bombs than the non-electric counterparts. Now these vehicles all do get the oil slick proximity mines that can be applied to them, as well as the armor plating and the missile lock-on jammers. So these are going to be a pretty good option for those of you who want to stay protected while also not being able to get locked onto. And number 4, we got the Rune Zaba coming in at $1,800,000 to $2,400,000 depending on if you have the trade price or not. The Rune Zaba, despite being an absolutely dreadful vehicle generally, is actually quite well armored. This vehicle can take a whopping 14 RPGs or 14 homing missiles, which is an insane amount and is really the only redeeming factor about this vehicle. The Zaba's other notable features that it is amphibious like the APC that we talked about a little while earlier, meaning it can drive on land but also sail in the water, very, very slowly in either terrain albeit. However, it does also have some decent customization, but overall this vehicle is not really worth owning just because of its heavy armor. It's too bad in every other metric to justify owning it at all, which does kind of suck, but it's the truth. At number 3, we got the Terabyte for $1,375,000 as the starting price, but it can be a lot more expensive than that depending on how much you do to it. Now, the Terabyte has always been a pretty well-armored vehicle. It can take 32 homing missiles, which is a pretty good amount. With the Agents of Sabotage DLC, they added quite a bit of customization and new features to the Terabyte that are purchasable through the Garment Factory business. They've added an optional missile lock-on jammer, as well as a master control terminal and a silent running module. Now, the silent running module will take you off the radar while the vehicle is stationary. The missile lock-on jammer, of course, will block you from being locked onto, and the master control terminal will allow you to resupply your businesses from your Terabyte, so you don't have to go to each individual business to do the resupply, which is pretty cool. Now, I would honestly say that the Terabyte is probably the best armored vehicle in GTA Online due to the fact that it has the missile lock-on jammer, as well as having the insane amount of armor, being able to take 32 homing missiles. But technically, in terms of pure armor, the Terabyte is not the best, but I do think it probably is realistically the best vehicle in the entire game when it comes to protecting yourself from other players. But anyways, let's go ahead and talk about number 2 because it has a little bit more in the way of armor. And at number 2, we have the Brigade 6x6 or the Acid Lab. For $750,000, you can purchase this thing, plus an additional $250,000 to get the equipment upgrade in your Acid Lab if you do want it. Now, this vehicle is only ahead of the Terabyte because it can physically take more damage than the Terabyte. However, I am pretty skeptical that this vehicle would have better survivability than the Terabyte in an actual PvP scenario, and this is due to the fact of the lock-on jammer and the silent running module and all that the Terabyte has, whereas the Acid Lab doesn't have any of that stuff. It just purely has more armor, and it can take 48 homing missiles, which is a pretty significant increase over the Terabyte, but keep in mind it doesn't have a missile lock-on jammer, so all of those missiles are probably going to hit depending on what is shooting the homing missiles. However, the Acid Lab does get access to a variety of different proximity mines, which is pretty cool, and they can be dropped behind the vehicle as you drive. The best one typically is the Slick Mine, but the EMP mines are also quite good too. Honestly, it's a toss-up between the two, but the Acid Lab is definitely the second most armored vehicle in the game. And of course, at number 1, we have the Mobile Operations Center, but specifically the Mobile Operations Center cab. This is going to cost you $1,225,000 for the base price, and of course you will need to own a bunker in order to buy this thing as well. This has been the most armored vehicle in GTA Online for a number of years now, and it can take an absolutely ridiculous 67 homing missiles, which is pretty crazy. Like, you're basically not going to die in this thing, which is insane. Another cool feature about it is that if you reverse towards your enemies, the back of this thing cannot be shot through, so you can reverse up to people and back them down, and you can also shoot straight through the back of this thing. So it's like a one-way shield, which is pretty insane. Overall, it is very, very good. I will say. Plus, it is significantly more mobile than the Acid Lab and the Terabyte, I would say, due to the fact that it's just a semi-cab. But of course, it does not get that missile lock-on jammer like the Terabyte does. So depending on what you want, I would say the Terabyte could potentially be better than the Mobile Operations Center in general, but that choice is ultimately up to you. So anyway guys, there you have it. Those are the 15 most armored vehicles in GTA Online as it stands currently going into 2025. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you learned something, a like is of course appreciated. If not, dislike. Consider subscribing to my channel if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.